Hello, Savannah. Thank you for tuning into WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. Thank you for tuning in on this fine Wednesday afternoon. You just reached the half point, actually. It's past 12 o'clock, 12:08 right here on my monitor. And we are broadcasting right here live from downtown Savannah near Troop Square. It's a live show today, March 11th, 2020. And I hope you're having a great day out there. We're surely glad that you've tuned in. My name is Julia M. Spencer, and you tuned into Real Estate Real Talk, my weekly show here where we talk about anything and everything related to real estate investing. I am really glad that you're here, and I haven't done a live show in quite some time, so my apologies. I've been kind of going through the archives and sorting things out, editing stuff. I've actually, after working here at the station for close to 3 years now, figured out how to use SoundCloud, or what is it, Audacity. That's what it is, Audacity. So the shows will be coming much faster to your screens back at home, or if you're listening to the show on YouTube, because I can edit them myself now. Woo! So that's a big achievement here for me, being not so tech savvy sometimes. Anyways, what are we going to talk about on today's show? Let me just give you a little bit the format of my show in case you haven't listened to me before. So what we usually do is we talk about a topic related to real estate, and it could be anything really. It could be landlording, could be how to get a mortgage, or it could be about insurance, it could be how to get good deals. I have a lot of good shows about that. Could be about tax sale foreclosure investing, which I'm really big into. A lot of people have asked me about overage investing. So a lot of my questions that I get and show ideas are actually from my YouTube channel. So if you are interested, my name is Julia M. Spencer. It's really easy to find anywhere on all the social platforms out there. And you're welcome to just check out and see what I have out there. I have close to 600 videos, I think, now on YouTube. It's crazy, 600. I don't know how. We just started with one. So, yeah, I'm pretty proud of that. We have a couple thousand subscribers. I think it's close to 11,000 or just past that now. So a lot of my show ideas basically come from you guys out there, so I do appreciate always your input, suggestions, feedback, comments, good, bad, ugly. I take it all. And of course, today is one of those topics I've gotten from your suggestions, actually, and also a little bit of my own experience here. So on today's show, we're going to talk a little bit about consumer advocacy here, and a specific topic which has to do with collection agencies. It's maybe not specifically 100% related to real estate investing. In my case, it is, because I'll tell you the story here in a moment. But I want to talk a little bit today about basically what I'm faced with right now, and kind of brings the real world of real estate investing to you. A little bit of how it will be solved, because it will be solved. Obviously, every challenge can be passed and taken care of, and also maybe a couple suggestions of what you can do if you encounter something similar. So that's what we're going to do, and in between the segments, of course, what I'll usually do is play my favorite songs on my playlist. I'm a big music fan as well, so we'll break it up a little bit, make it not so boring for you, and we're going to start with Ned's Atomic Dustbin, and the name of this track is Stuck. We're trying to not get stuck, so I'm going to play this song for you. Enjoy. Try not to get you stuck here. That was Ned's Atomic Dustbin. Thanks for tuning in to WRUU. And my name's Julia M. Spencer. You just tuned into Real Estate Real Talk. Thank you for being with me here. And today we're going to be talking about collection agencies and what you can do if you've gotten a nasty gram in the mail. And so let me just introduce the story a little bit. Before we get to it, though, I wanted to let you guys know that the viewpoints expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of WRUU, its license holder, or its staff. Little disclaimer there. And anyways, let's get to my story here. So being a real estate investor right here in Savannah and in Macon, a couple of other areas too, South Carolina and Florida myself, I deal with a lot of real estate, obviously. And it's not like a super huge amount because I like to kind of have my fingers in everything and I like to control it myself. So what will happen just about every month is I have a lot of accounts that I'm responsible for each property. So, you have all the utilities for the vacation rentals, you got taxes, insurance, lawn care, every house has a couple of accounts, anywhere from 5 to 10, depending on what's going on at any one point in time. So obviously I have many, many accounts. I probably want to say maybe close to 100 accounts that I manage every month, which isn't a big deal. That's my job, and I love doing that. Sometimes, though, some of the accounts kind of fall through the cracks. Shouldn't happen, but, I'm only human as well. And like I said, I'm kind of like a little bit of control freak, so I try to keep my fingers in everything. So anyway, I think what happened in this case is that one of the accounts, for whatever reason, was unpaid. And I do believe it was some sort of transfer where we had a property that we then sold, but the mail was still going to that address, which we didn't have access to that mailbox anymore. And then what happened is the account was turned over to a collection agency. And I believe this was for a cable bill for a vacation rental. So the other day I got a letter. This is the first letter I got in a long time. I've not gotten any bills at all. But it was a letter from a company called AFNI, A-F-N-I. I don't know if you've heard of them before. But basically, they're a collection agency, so I found out. And I actually didn't even get the letter first. I got a phone call first. And they were looking for me. Of course, I know better than to say, okay, I am actually me. And especially a number I don't recognize. So I kind of was just first poking around to see who's actually calling me and looked that up online before I would say who I was. And that was pretty much the end of that conversation. I called them back a few times actually to get more information out of them. But since I wouldn't admit who I was, they wouldn't give me a whole lot other than the name of their company. But basically, I did actually bring the letter with me here to the studio today. They're asking me to pay a whole of $40 to Comcast, and they gave me an account number, and it basically says account has been placed with our agency for collection, blah blah blah, and we're willing to accept $26 to resolve your account. Now, mind you, I've not heard from it being a delinquent account actually in probably like 2 years. I suspect it's about 2 years old, this bill. But however, I haven't seen a bill because I haven't had access to the mailbox that I think the bill went to. And so some time has passed, and I'm not even quite sure how the collection agency got my new address, which isn't even my new address. It's another address that the account was transferred to. Anyways, long story, I have this collection notice for $40, which isn't really a big deal. And sometimes, it's actually just easier to just go ahead and pay it and be done with it, so you don't have to deal with it. But I'm going to take one for the team here, and I need to investigate this. So I had to find out. So I did a little bit of digging with this one, and discovered a couple of things from this company. This company is actually based in Illinois. And they are a legitimate company and actually are used by some of the, basically Verizon, I think Comcast, a couple other companies that use this as a collection agency. And it's a legitimate company. And so I'm like, okay, well, all great and good, but I really honestly don't even have any documentation at all on this particular bill right here. And I don't know even if the $40 or $26, which is what they asked me to settle with, is even a correct amount. And this isn't really a big deal now, mind you, people, but if you have like bigger bills for a couple $1,000s or $500, the process is basically the same. So I wanted to just give you a little bit of an advice of what I did with this particular bill to this point, and also what you can do, what information and what kind of recourse is basically available to you with the law. Not specifically real estate investing related here today, but it is a little bit, your personal finance management related, which, a lot of that has to do with real estate. If you have real estate properties, you'll have more accounts anyways. So, this letter that I got from them basically states that unless you notify the office within 30 days after receiving this notice that you dispute the validity of the debt on any portion thereof, this office will assume the debt is valid. And they're, basically waiting for me to respond. I did not talk to them other than asking them who they were when they called me, but I did get this letter pretty much like the next day. And so, what do you do when you get this kind of a letter from AFNI or any other debt collection agency? So in my research, and this is something that you may know already, but it's a little bit of a refresher for you if you didn't, but if you received a letter or a call from a collection agency, basically for them to basically demanding an old or non-existent debt, could be even non-existent, where do you actually start? So what I wanted to teach you basically with this show anyway is that you have rights. There's the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, FDCPA. It's online, and that is basically the law that guarantees your rights. So collection agencies sometimes prey on uneducated consumers, and they may bully you too. So you need to definitely have to do some investigative work, basically, and see what you can do. So we're going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this agency, AFNI. I don't know if this will be the one that contacts you if you ever go to collections, but it seems to be more one of the prevalent ones. And basically, the information I found about this company is that it's a collection agency in Bloomington, Illinois, and it started under a different name, actually, in 1936. And it was called the H.A. Slavens Collection Bureau. And it was purchased by Earl Anderson in 1976, and they changed the name to Anderson Financial Network, Inc. And that's how they got their acronym AFNI. And in 1985, Bruce Griffin joined AFNI as a general manager, and together with Earl Anderson, they began opening satellite offices around the entire country. And each satellite office basically reports to the central office in Bloomington. So according to their own website, AFNI is a customer life cycle solutions company. When I went to their website, I couldn't right away make out that it was actually a collection agency. It didn't look like it. It just looked like a regular government agent or a government contractor, actually, the ones that I've seen that work with the military and provide services. So that's what it looked like to me, but it wasn't quite obvious from the beginning what they did. And they do say on their website that they specialize in customer growth, consumer collections, and insurance subrogation, whatever that means. So a mouthful anyway. So a little bit about the company. So it's a legitimate company, but that doesn't mean that their practices are legitimate or any other collection agency that actually contacts you. So what should you do after a collection agency basically contacts you? So the biggest thing basically that they do tell you on all the websites that I've researched, as well as my own experience, is basically to not talk to them on the phone. So when they called me, again, I did talk to them, but I did not admit that I was Julia Spencer. I was just telling them, okay, how did you get my number? Who are you? And basically asking more questions than answering them. But what you really should be doing is do all communications through certified mail. That's really your best course of action in this kind of case. And even if the debt is yours, there might be a statute of limitations which may have expired. So that means they cannot legally collect the debt. So the first thing to do is to make them prove that the debt is yours, and then basically have them prove that the date of the debt, so you can verify that it falls within or outside the statute of limitations, I guess. And of course, then you have to also, you can ask them if they're even legally allowed to collect this debt for the person that you owe this money to. So you do this with sending them a debt verification letter. And that's basically what I did. I had to actually research how to even write a letter like that. Never written one before. But the cool thing is, of course, with the internet, you can just download just about anything. And I found a really cool template. And we're going to talk a little bit of what that letter contains here in a minute. But I wanted to just share that information with you because you can do that as well. You can even do that for debts that are collected on your credit report. Like if you have a bad credit rating because there's some bad stuff on there, you can you have the rights basically to send the agency say that you owe them money, this debt validation letter, and they pretty much have to respond to that or else basically take the debt off. And in fact, what I understand is a lot of the credit repair companies out there, that's pretty much the basis what they operate on is these laws that are given to people through the federal agency here and that pretty much protect your rights in this matter. And we're going to talk a little bit what the debt validation letter says and kind of how you have to word it and what information you should be getting back when you send that. So that's kind of a handful here. But basically, collection agencies may try to still collect invalid debt that doesn't belong to you, or if they think that you're going to pay it, they're going to pursue you anyways. And if they prove the debt is valid, then the collection agency must then prove the original creditor authorized them to collect the debt. So anyways, in summary for this first segment, you have to send them an initial debt dispute letter or a debt validation letter and basically prove all these things to you. Federal law prohibits the collection agency actually from contacting you until they can verify that the debt is valid after they receive the initial dispute letter. So it's very important for you to send that letter, to draft it. You can, do it on your computer and sign it and get one of those templates and then send that to them as soon as possible, and preferably with certified mail and return receipt is what I usually do, which certification gives you that as well. So we're going to talk about a little bit more about debt collection, what can be done to you or not to you, basically, and how you can deal with debt collection practices that are maybe not 100% correct and what your rights are in that respect. But we are actually at the half point of my show here. You're listening to Real Estate Real Talk with Julia M. Spencer. Thank you for tuning in here on this fine Wednesday afternoon. And you're listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with Global Soul. And I'll be right back after a couple of messages. So stay on. Don't go anywhere.
Voting is now open for Connect Savannah's annual Best of Savannah Readers Poll, and WRUU is once again on the ballot. Last year, you voted us best in the local radio station and talk radio station categories. Continue your support of WRUU 107.5 FM by again voting for us in the Best Local Radio Station and Best Local Talk Radio Station category. Vote for your favorite WRUU morning program and favorite WRUU host. Voting ends at 11:59 p.m. sharp on Tuesday, April 14th, and results will be revealed the night of Tuesday, May 19th. For details and voting, visit connectsavannah.com. And as always, thank you for listening to, supporting, and voting for WRUU-LP Savannah. This is WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with Global Soul.
Anyways, thanks for having tuned in to Real Estate Real Talk with Julia M. Spencer. And I am back. And we're talking about collection agencies and what they can and cannot do when they claim that you owe somebody some money. And in this particular case, we had actually a specific example because I was sent one of these letters or collections actually from, I guess, a couple years ago. I don't remember exactly. I know it was at least 2 years, probably close to 3. And wanted to kind of read to you the validation letter that I sent them, and I sent it to them just last week, I believe, with certified mail, and kind of like what it has to contain. We talked about the 3 things, but how is it supposed to be worded? So you kind of can know how to draft your own. Now, you don't have to make notes of this. I'm just kind of giving this information to you here on the radio, because it's really easy to find a template about that online, and you can just copy and paste that, and they're free. So basically, it will read something like, okay, you'll have your address, the address of the collection agency, obviously. If you can find a physical address, that's always more advantageous than sending it to a P.O. box. Certified mail to a P.O. box is kind of difficult sometimes, or I'm not even sure that's going to hold up in court. That's a whole other story. But if you can find the collection agency's physical address, that's usually the better way to go if you want to send a certified letter. And you put your name, your address, and the collection agency's name and address, and make sure you write down the account number as it's stated on your collection letter, which it should state that on there, hopefully they know what it is. And you basically just write, this letter is being sent to you in response to a notice sent to me on the date that you got it. And be advised that this is not a refusal on my part to pay any legitimate debt that I may possibly owe, but a notice to send pursuant to the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. And then you can even give the title number. And they're on these templates right here. I'm not even going to read that. It doesn't matter. just copy the letter the way it is. And basically that you claim is disputed and a validation is required. And that's basically your first paragraph there. And then you basically write, this is a formal request for validation made pursuant to the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, and I hereby request that your offices provide me with competent evidence that I have any legal obligation to pay you. And then you basically list, please provide me all of the following information. What the amount you say I owe is for, and then explain and show me how you calculated what you say I owe, and make sure that you also ask them, it's not in this letter, but I wrote it in mine, that if the debt was like purchased by another company, in other words, a lot of these bad debts actually sold back and forth between different companies, and you want to like trace it back to the actual person who you've had a contract with. And so in my letter, I basically wrote, okay, if this is not the company that I actually had a contract with, then I also need the information from the actual original company. So if Comcast sold my debt to XYZ company, don't just send me a verification from XYZ company. I need the actual original contract. And in my letter, I even asked them to provide me with the original and not a photocopy. You can ask for that. And anyways, the next thing that you'll ask them is provide me with copies of any papers that show I agree to pay what you say I owe. Case in point, original contract. Provide a verification or copy of any judgment if applicable. They probably don't have that yet because they're just sending you a letter. And identify the original creditor with full name and address. Again, case in point, if the debt was sold to somebody else, I want the original person I had the contract with. And provide proof that the statute of limitations has not expired on the account. Again, they might be asking you to pay something that's very much yours to pay, but the time has passed in your case and in your state, and you're no longer responsible for it after that. And that actually applies to a lot of real estate transactions, believe it or not. That's why there's always this rush to the courthouse to record courthouse documents, because as long as they're not recorded and sitting on some lawyer's desk somewhere, they're not 100% legal and can't really be enforced as good as when it's actually recorded at the courthouse. So it's always good to check on the statute of limitations. And I've actually made more shows about this. I can go on a whole completely different tangent on this, but let's stick back with this debt validation letter. Provide proof that you are licensed as a collection agency in the state where my contract was basically signed, that you can collect debt in that state. So in my case, this collection agency right here is in Bloomington, Illinois. And of course, they're claiming and sending this letter to me right here in Georgia. So they may not have any right to collect here in Georgia. They may not have a license. And so I am asking them to provide that to me. And then in the last paragraph, you basically say, be advised that if your offices have reported invalidated information to any of the 3 major credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion, this action might constitute a violation of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and or other laws, including fraud. Due to this fact, if any negative mark is found on any of my credit reports by your company or the company that you represent, I will not hesitate in bringing legal action against you for numerous causes of action, including but not limited to violation of the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and blah, blah, blah. There's a couple others. Anyways, wanted to tell you guys that's kind of like how a debt validation letter reads. Now, the act of actually sending that letter and claiming basically that is, if they're sending you this debt collection letter and claiming that it's yours and demanding payment, and if that's not actually your debt, that's actually called mail fraud. So they will have to provide this information to you, basically, because if they don't, they could get in trouble with the law for committing mail fraud, which is a federal offense. So this is pretty important that you send this letter. So don't just ignore your collection agency letters. You actually have to do something with them, and you have a limited amount of time to deal with it. In my case, it was 30 days, so it was plenty of time. And by sending all communications through certified mail, you will have records of what you sent and that they received it. And that's also to your advantage in case you ever have to go to a court of law and kind of prove your points here. Now, once you have contacted them and sent them this dispute letter, basically, and you have proof that they received it, then they are harassing you and violating the FDCPA, and if they still contact you after that, and you can actually file a lawsuit. So this agency, FDCPA, actually regulates all collection agencies, even though some of them do not follow the statutes that are outlined by that law. So just basically kind of giving you a little bit of a heads up that you have ways to deal with these kinds of collections. Now, in my case, it wasn't a big deal. I mean, I could care less for the $26, obviously, or whatever they want from me. But I really wanted to kind of get to the bottom of this. So there's going to be a little bit more information coming on this. But the way I see this resolve, well, we can talk about that in the next segment, the way I see this resolving. But I wanted to just briefly add to this as well, is that it may be in your best interest, depending on the actions of the collection agency, to hire a lawyer. It's never a bad idea. The collection agency will not be able to contact you anymore once you hired a lawyer. They have to go through your lawyer. And that's basically the big advantage if they're actually really, really harassing you. And if your debt is legitimate, though, too, and if you're willing to pay it, this is another outcome that could come. Tell them basically that you'll pay it in full if they remove the account from your credit report completely. So pay for delete letter, that's another template that you can find out there on the interwebs. And I'm not going to give you the website because there's several options here. You can just kind of type it in, pay for delete letter. And that's kind of basically sort of like a little bit of a negotiation tactic, because once you pay a debt like that, if it's already on your credit report, they really have no obligation to remove it, even when you pay it. So you want to at least, if that's already on there and you're willing to pay it, have them delete that from your credit report. And for sure, I would not give them a single cent until you get that agreement in writing. Otherwise, they just won't remove it, and a verbal agreement is just not as strong as a written one. anyways, I hope that was kind of helpful. And we're dealing with consumer advocacy here today on my show, Real Estate Real Talk. You're listening to Julia M. Spencer. And thank you for tuning in. I'm going to give you another little break song here, and we're going to talk a little bit about a couple small last things here about what collection agencies actually legally can do and can't do. And that's going to be my last segment, so stay on. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Thank you for tuning in to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with Global Soul. Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to Real Estate Real Talk right here. And we're talking about the rights of collection agencies and your rights, obviously. And I wanted to just briefly, with this last very short segment, oh my gosh, we have a couple more minutes left here before the 1 o'clock hour. What can collection agencies legally actually do, and what can they not do, basically? I wanted to talk briefly about that. So they can contact you by phone, email, text, or letter, but they can't do that at an inconvenient time, such as before 8 a.m. or after 9. So just remember that. If somebody calls you after 9, they're not allowed to do that, also not before 8 a.m. And if they do find that it's a legitimate debt that you have, they can actually sue you. And if they win, they can enter a judgment against you. But this is kind of like with any kind of lawsuit. And that judgment will then state the amount you owe, and that's the amount that they can actually garnish your wages with. It works very similar with collecting outstanding rents here, since we're talking about a real estate show here. So once you have a judgment, then you can take that to the employer and garnish wages, and obviously collection agencies can do the same. But there's a very strict process here. They can't just go to your employer and demand money. They have to get a judgment, go to court. You have a right to defend yourself. And we have these laws and rules for a reason, people, so don't miss taking advantage of them. They can, however, obviously take your wages, but of course for that they need to know where you work. So there's another little caveat there. In my case here, they're asking me to pay $26. I mean, even if they determine the debt is valid, they're not going to go through the effort to try to find me or get my wages garnished, because it actually costs money to get somebody to do that for you, and it's more than $26. So in my case, I'm not really too worried about it. But the one advice I want to give you is to always respond to a lawsuit, either yourself or through a lawyer. Otherwise, you will lose the opportunity to fight any kind of garnishment, wage garnishment, or any kind of judgment against you. So it's important to open your mail and respond, and just do it the right way, not the wrong way. And of course, just to summarize here, you have the right to be informed, and the collection agency must prove that debt is yours, that it hasn't reached the statute of limitations, and that they are authorized by the to be collecting this debt for their client. And they can't pretend that they're another agency like a government, and they can't contact you at work. In fact, no collection agency should ever call you at work. They can only call you at your personal number. So if you get any harassing, threatening, or deceiving acts, make sure that you kind of report it, or at least, deal with it appropriately. And of course, document everything. Document. I say that all the time. Even if you just get a phone call, make a note of when you got it, who called you, at what time. I do that all the time because I lose track of my life otherwise. And the one additional thing that I did find in my research too is that do really watch for the statute of limitations, because let's say an account is can be a valid debt for up to 3 years. Let's say this is just an example, and it might be different in your state or where you are. But if you give them like a partial payment, that statute of limitations time frame actually starts over. So don't pay anybody any money until this determination is made whether the debt is really yours or not. Don't give him any partial payments. I know some of you are like, well, let me just send him a little bit, so it eases my burden and my guilty mind or my stress here. Don't do that, because your statute of limitations will start over, and you don't want to have to start that over again in the whole process. So I hope this was really useful to you. Thought I could do a little bit of a show on what has happened to me and kind of use that to educate you a little bit more about credit practices and that you have rights. And these things usually are pretty self-obvious for the most part, but it's always helpful to hear it again and kind of remind yourself that you have rights and there's processes and procedures to follow. I'm really a big stickler on control and following the rules and following the steps, being an engineer. So this is always very helpful to me when I research things and I was like, hey, I have a recourse for this, or I don't have a recourse for this, or this person doesn't have a recourse to collect from me. And following procedures and steps is always a good way to ensure that you don't pay more than you have to pay, and everything is right in its right box and plays the right way. So, and you're successful in your business endeavors. So we are close to the top of the hour, actually, and I want to just let you know that the viewpoints expressed in the preceding program were not necessarily those of WRUU, its license holder, or its staff. And if you're staying on to listen to more of WRUU, the next show on the station is Mother Beat. It's hosted by Ben. It's African music. It's some cool stuff. You don't hear it anywhere else. My show right here, Real Estate Real Talk, is on Wednesdays at noon. You can actually also catch old shows on my YouTube channel as well as the WRUU.org website. So I hope you have a chance to check that out as well. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or you need to maybe research another topic, my YouTube channel, of course, can be found online. It's free to watch. Julia M. Spencer. And send me a message. You can just send me an email too. My email address is realestates@juliamspencer.com. And I hope you all have a great, awesome rest of your week and Wednesday. I'm really glad that you're here. We're glad that you're listening to WRUU. And just as a reminder, you are listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. Have a great day, everybody.
For your free guide to real estate investing, visit juliamspencer.com.